Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth podcast. I'm Shrikar Rajendran,
I'm Jack Smith.
And I'm Manish Gupta.
and for today's episode, kind of similar to the Texans one we are going to upload, but we are going to go over the Chargers. We're going to go over, let's see, are people really overlooking the Chargers? You know, they went through a lot of change. When you look back at last year, coming off that 12-4 year, everyone thinks they're going to compete with the Chiefs for the AFC West. Then, of course, 5-11 happened. But now they have a new starting quarterback, new stadium, new uniforms. So a lot of change. And when you look at Anthony Lynn, I think he's still a really great coach, and I think he can bounce back. But the first thing I want to get into here, let's talk about the quarterback situation. You know, I like Tyrod Taylor, and I feel like he's never gotten like a fair situation or scenario. Because so when the franchise was moving on from Phillip Rivers and they were kind of looking at Tyrod, I mean, I was kind of here for it. I mean, the Chargers resisted Tom Brady, Cam Newton. So I was fired up. But instead of drafting a lineman or, you know, a receiver to give Tyrod the best opportunity to succeed, the Chargers, well, they used the sixth pick on Justin Herbert. He is a pro-ready quarterback. He's drawn comparisons to Carson Wentz. So what's going on here? You know, the Chargers can try to tell me that they're big believers in Tyrod, but literally their actions are just saying that they were kidding. And for Tyrod, this is an all too familiar scenario. I know Anish can attest to this as a Browns fan. Hugh Jackson put a ton of faith in him when Tyrod Taylor was the Brown starter a couple of years ago. And then 3 games into the season, Baker Mayfield was given the job. And Anthony Lynn said Tyrod's going to have the initial edge because he's a veteran, but he also promised a competition. So my question to you guys is, how long will Tyrod hold off Herbert? And, you know, are the Chargers about to become the latest team in this saga of Tyrod Taylor to not benefit from letting him take the reins?
I think with the Chargers, that is kind of a side question that I wanted to address with them. But okay, here's what I'll say about Tyrod Taylor, and I wanted to address this. He has a career winning record. Like, he's 23, 21-1 in his career. That is a good sample size. I don't get it. Why are people so – he's been a bridge quarterback for so many teams. The Ravens being one in particular. The Browns, another AFC North counterpart. I think he's going to be one here. I like Justin Herbert. Jack and I kind of had this discussion literally right before the episode started. Jack will tell you more about Justin Herbert. But, again, the only game I really saw from him was against Auburn. That was his only loss, I think, for, like, the longest time. I think he went, like, 7-1 after, and then they had a really good season. So when I saw him, again, I told Jack this. He didn't seem poised in the pocket. And Jack kind of told me that, yeah, he's kind of ill. Like, he doesn't want to make those type of throws. He's not a risk taker. But, look, I think with the Chargers, and going back to Anthony Lynn, I think Jack can handle the quarterback thing. I still think – here's what I'll say quickly, though. Tyrod should be the week 1 starter. I think Justin Herbert should – I don't know if he should redshirt him for a year, but I think they should take their time with Tyrod Taylor because I still have faith in him. He has, again, the winning record speaks for itself. So he's taking the Bills. Sorry, Bills were another team where he was the bridge quarterback. He took them to the playoffs. So and that was the thing about it this way. He took them to the playoffs, and they had a game where they actually started Nathan Peterman, and that was the worst half I've ever seen. So just shows that Tyrod Taylor is pretty impressive. But I think back to Anthony Lynn and the Chargers. Look, so they go 12-4, right? They beat the Chiefs at Kansas City on Thursday night or Monday night. I forget one, but they went for it on 2 for a 2-point conversion. They won the game. Obviously, they lost on a conference tiebreaker for the division, and then they lost the divisional round by the Patriots in just a terrible clash. It was just Tom Brady's always owned Phillip Rivers. But yeah, so Phillip Rivers is the key thing here. I mean, the Chargers, again, we just talked about it earlier. They were a team that was first in offense, first in defense. Didn't make the playoffs because their special teams was horrible. They just find ways to lose. Like, they went 5-11 last year, and 9 out of their 10 losses, 9 out of 10 were by 1 possession. So 7 points or less. That's not gonna win you games. Like, if you literally flip their record, they would be what? I can't remember. I think they were like 12-4 if you flip their games in that scenario. So that's just really, really bad. Like, just losing games like that. I mean, they've blown games to where it's like a pass interference where Drew Lock came back. It's just they find ways to lose, and I can't express how bad that is for a franchise. It's just they haven't been able to uplift themselves and find themselves in the Super Bowl where, you know, they haven't really been a relevant franchise for a long time. And I think Phillip Rivers, yes, he's there. They have the good roster. It's just they can't they can't do anything with it. And I think Phillip Rivers being gone, I think it's a good place to now find your next guy because he's been there since 2004. Yes, they made an AFC championship. They really haven't done much since, despite having countless of, honestly, careers that they wasted. I mean, LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, they didn't really get much out of them. They still have Keenan Allen, who's very, very talented. And I was telling this with Jack, top to bottom, I think they're a top 5 to 6 roster. I mean, you look at it, right? Their defense, their right side of their offensive line, Trey Turner, don't forget Mike Pouncey and
Brian Bulaga.
Pouncey, one of them, and Brian Bulaga, right? You have Austin Eckler, Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert, receivers Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, I believe is a top 8 tight end. Defense, you go Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa, Linval Joseph. Linebackers, Kenneth Murray. I mean, Denzel Perryman is still good. Secondary, sorry, I know I'm kind of listing all of them, but Derwin James, who I believe is a very, very good safety, Casey Hayward, Chris Harris, and then Nasir Adderley, a guy who I believe can develop into a really good starter. So this is an insane roster, and I'm going to leave it to Jack to kind of touch on this. It's just, can they overcome Phillip Rivers? I think Phillip Rivers might have been the problem, and I think will Tyrod Taylor be the guy, or will they redshirt Herbert, or will Herbert come in maybe week 6 and, shine out as a starter? Like, I think, Jack, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
So yeah, Justin Herbert, I liked him going into the draft process. And then I watched a very interesting YouTube video actually on him. I'm going to leave it down in the description by a guy named Brett Kollman, who did a film room study on Justin Herbert. And it confirmed some of the things I knew about him and also just showed me a lot of new things about Herbert. He is extremely hard to predict. He has games where he looks like one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Like, he is obviously he's an extreme arm talent. If he puts it all together, can be one of the all-time greats. But he has games where he also looks horrible. That video compared him to a Mitch Trubisky turned onto another level, where he has games where he looks like he can be great and he shows extreme flashes, and he has other games where, he looks like Mitchell Trubisky did this season. But it's a lot of hesitation in the pocket, inaccuracy on a lot of times on big throws, failure to complete passes down the field, seems like a little bit scared. And this season, the Oregon coaches stopped trusting Justin Herbert in a lot of games. You look at games like he played against Auburn. They were winning and they were playing well, like the video shows, and they shut him down because they could not trust him to make big throws. And that's what caused them to lose some of the games this year. And while he does have games like the Rose Bowl where he shows you that he can be great, specifically they talked about the Colorado game. He has games where he looks like an incredible quarterback, will come in and be one of the top in the league very soon, but there's also games where he looks just horrible. So I think a player like that, you cannot start immediately. And I think that's a player that if he goes to if this coaching staff is right for him, can be tremendous. But if they really can't figure out how to refine him, it could be a wasted career.
And Anish touched on this a little bit, but the defense, Kenneth Murray, Lynn called him one of his favorite players in the draft. I really thought the Chargers could have benefited from taking Isaiah Simmons at 6, but this is probably the next best thing. I like the decision to trade up for him. He averaged 12 TFLs in Oklahoma, and now he's going to give the Chargers playmakers on all 3 levels, and Anish described it perfectly. And we cannot forget Chris Harris. The Chargers already had one of the best corners in the game in Casey Hayward, my bad. And now you add another stud in Harris. He's 31, I believe, 31. You may have to fact check me on that one, but he's still one of the best in the business in my book. And it's kind of reminding me, I don't know if you guys are going to agree with this, but it's kind of reminding me of Richard Sherman when he went from the Seahawks to the Niners, because it's rivals, right? And now you're going from the Broncos to the Chargers. So, I think people are definitely overlooking how great this defense could really be. This defense could be something. And they already ranked 6th in total defense last season. They were 5th against the pass. But, they can reach an even higher ceiling now. So that's just my thoughts on the defense.
I think with the Chargers, it's just, you're right. Like, they've got the pieces. And I'm still going to put them in my tier 3 teams. But my only problem was, again, finishing out the game. Again, 9 losses under 7 points. That is, I always have this kind of one knock for each team. And that is my knock on the Chargers. They always have, statistically, they are always like a top 10 team. It's just sometimes I'll get a 12-4, and the other times I'll get a 5-11. That's just how they've always really been. And they haven't done well in the playoffs, but Look, I think they needed a quarterback change. They got rid of Philip Rivers at the right time. I think this was the right time to get rid of him. And I think he'll do well in Indianapolis. I think it's a great system there. But again, yeah, you're right. This defense is loaded. And if Jack, I know you have them as the best secondary. You're predicting them to be. They could very well be. I'm not going to put them over the Pats yet, but on paper, this team is loaded. Like, this is one of the best situations to go to if I'm a quarterback. And I think Tyrod Taylor. I think people are sleep. I think if Tyrod Taylor is the full-time starter, I think he could lead this team to 9-7, 10-6. But again, this is another one of those teams where I have to look at it and say their AFC counterparts are getting better. The Chiefs are already, the biggest powerhouse in the NFL. The Ravens, obviously, you can't overlook them, but I think that's even in their own division. The Raiders picked up a lot of pieces in free agency, right? The Broncos got a lot better, and I think Drew Lock's going to develop. So it's really just the same thing with the Texans. It's like, how do they stack up against their own division? So I think with the Chargers, it's just, what am I going to get from Tyrod Taylor? What am I going to get from them just in big games? Because I don't think they play much in prime time anyway. So how is this defense going to look, and how is Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert, how are they going to, fill the void that was kind of lost by Philip Rivers? But another one thing, sorry, I think actually you guys should touch on this. Their free agency coming up.
Oh my God, it's brutal.
It's terrible.
Oh,
it's terrible. Like, I think like half their star. I think 2021, Hunter Henry, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen. Yeah, like so many of their key players are getting hit with. So while they are one of the best rosters on paper, it's not going to last very long. So if you guys want to touch on that, is this kind of the year that the Chargers actually have to put it all together?
Yeah, so I think that we've seen, 12-4 with a Philip Rivers great season. I think it was a really good season for Philip Rivers. And when his play went down, the team went down to 5-11. So the big question, I think, surrounding the Chargers is, will Tyrod Taylor, I guess I'll ask you this too, will Tyrod Taylor play better than the Philip Rivers we had last year?
Oh, okay. Well, he's in a better position, though. Their defense is better, so I feel like they're going to get a lot more turnovers. And their
O-line is better.
Adding Kenneth Murray and Chris Harris, it was already a great defense last year.
I know, but you add great pieces this year too, right? Like, again, Murray, Chris Harris, Linval Joseph also, don't forget.
It's not even the defense, it's also the O-line too. It's just the whole situation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The right side of the O-line, I'd argue it's like top 6, top 7 maybe. Like Bulaga, Trey Turner, and is it Mike or Marquise? I keep forgetting. It's one of the Pounceys. So yeah, it's one of the Pounceys. Both of them are good. So those three are really solid. I think their left side is what's more important because obviously for me, left tackle is the most important position on the line for a right-handed quarterback. But again, like he's just in a better position to do well. And also he does not throw picks. Tyrod Taylor doesn't. One time he led the league with, I think, a 1% interception percentage. That's insane. So he does not turn the ball over, whereas Philip Rivers does turn the ball over a lot. I don't know if he hit the 20 pick marker last year, but I know he was top 3 in picks. So he threw a lot. I don't think Tyrod Taylor is going to be that same dude. And it really just comes down to how does Anthony Lynn handle Justin Herbert? Because Anthony Lynn hasn't had to develop, quarterbacks. He had one in Philip Rivers already. And it's just, can the Chargers beat their divisional counterparts? That's another question, right? I think similar with the Texans. While the Texans have owned their division, the Chargers have not recently, right? They've always been kind of they lost to the Raiders, they've lost to the Broncos even, they've lost to the Chiefs consistently. Like, what am I going to, like, if I were to bet on it, I'd say the Chargers go 500 or less in the division, and that's not good. So it's really just that's where they're going to need to step up. Same thing. So for the Texans, it's non-divisional games, and for the Chargers, it's divisional games. I think that's how I'm kind of looking at it.
Yeah, I just think the reason we kind of want to do this episode is obviously the AFC East West has the Chiefs.
East.
Yeah, has the Chiefs. It has the Broncos, who are projected to be one of the biggest risers, and the Chargers is kind of sitting there, I think, getting overlooked a bit. So while I think that they are a playoff caliber team, I don't know if they can get there just because of the competition they will have. And I think there is reason to believe that the Broncos could be better than this year. I think on paper, at least, I'd say the Chargers are a better team, but they've still got to figure it out at quarterback. I still don't know about Drew Lock, but I also don't know about Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert. So it's really interesting because a lot of people talking about the Broncos means less people talking about the Chargers, and I think they might be getting overlooked a bit. I think they're a playoff caliber team. Whether they make it there, I really don't know.
And I do have a question for you guys.
Question. Yeah, Shrikar, go ahead.
So this is kind of pertaining to the running back situation. You know, we love Eckler. He's a great runner. He's a great football player. But I mean, he's kind of the running back who he'll get like 130 to 150 carries per season. He's never going to be like a 250 carry type player. So my question is, you know, can Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly, can they step up to fill the void left by Melvin Gordon when he left for Denver? And for those of you who like fantasy, I also wonder, you know, Eckler had 92 receptions. Will he do it again with Tyrod at quarterback?
Yeah, Eckler was one of my sleepers for fantasy football. So if you want to check that post out, check our Instagram in the description. I think with Austin Eckler, they haven't really given him the opportunity to be that 250 carry guy. I think he can be. I feel like he's one of those guys that just like, I don't think he's a 3-down back, but like out of the backfield, he's lethal. Like from a receiving standpoint, he's one of the best in the game. So I see a lot of like Darren Sproles in him. I think that's probably the best comparison. Danny Woodhead even actually. If you guys remember him, he's one of the players that not a lot of people remember. Still remember that guy with the Pats and the Chargers even. So I see a lot of that with him. It's so hard because the Chargers are a team with, you know, they have a good roster, but people just don't look at them as a team that can go far. And I think, and part of that is my knock on them, the finishing out games, right? What am I like? Would you guys? I'll give you that. Would you guys put them in that tier 3 that we discussed with the Texans? Do you think they're a tier 3 team? I think they're on the back half of it, but I think they still are in there.
I agree.
If we were to make a tier 3, I would say the Patriots, the Browns, the Steelers, the Chargers, the Broncos. I think that's
probably the Colts and Texans. I think.
Sorry. Yep. Yeah. Colts and Texans. That's kind of my tier 3. What is that? Like 7 teams. So, it really just depends can the Chargers really take a step forward despite losing Phillip Rivers? And Melvin Gordon, I think I don't think people are understand. It wasn't like a huge loss. Honestly, I think Melvin Gordon lost his holdout situation. I think he's the loser.
Yeah.
Because like the Chargers were doing decent without him. They won their first game in overtime without, like, yes, they had a bad record, but also it hurt Melvin Gordon's season. And as a result, he wasn't able to get the best contract. Yes, he's in a divisional counterpart with a decent system with Phillip Lindsay in there. But now he's not a bona fide running back. And, you know, the Chargers were feeding him. Like, he was getting so many goal line touches the years where he would get those 10-plus touchdowns. And I don't know how he's going to do in Denver. I think he's probably more of that power back while Phillip Lindsay's that receiving guy. I think that's probably how they're going to do it, similar to what the Chargers were doing with Gordon and Eckler. But I think with the Chargers, just with this episode, it's can they reestablish themselves as a top dog in the division? I think that's 1. And 2, how is their quarterback situation going to develop? I think that's the 2 things that they're missing. And sadly, those are the 2 most important things for a team. Like that's what sucks, but that's just how it is. Because yes, you can have the best defensive roster, you can have this offensive line, you can have a top 10 receiver, but it comes down to the quarterback and the coach. And I think Anthony Lynn, while he's shown he can do some good, I need it this year. I think if I'm a Chargers fan, I think I'm hoping for a wild card. I think that's probably where I would keep them.
I'm a big fan of the Chargers. I really want to believe in them, but honestly, I know the question is, are people overlooking the Chargers? And I see why people may be kind of discounting them and counting them out. And I see the reasons, and I don't want to say I agree, but I might agree with that, and that they
like. Okay, but what do you mean? Like, if you were to bet money on, would you say they make the playoffs?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
As much as I want to believe that they will.
I'd say no.
I don't think I would. Here's where I put them. If I were to like give you a record, throw you out right now. Look at their schedule, guys.
It's
NFC
hard.
South, right? Chiefs twice, Broncos twice. Raiders are also no joke, especially in a divisional game, right? That's a tough schedule, guys. Like, the NFC South is no joke. And if I were to throw a record out there, I'd say 8-8. I think that's where I see them going. I think their roster will keep them in games, but it's just see, because this team could go 11-5. Like, I hate to be that, like, it could go 11-5 just because quarterbacks develop, Justin Herbert comes in and becomes a star with the stuff around him, this could really well be an 11-5 team, right? But also it's like, what if they don't show up, and what if the rest of the team doesn't show up in crunch time? This could become another 6-10, 5-11 loss season, and maybe Anthony Lynn gets fired, and maybe they even push the reset because there's a lot of free agents coming up in 2021. Is it really worth paying the money to keep a team that has not gotten far at all? Right?
With a juggernaut in the division and another one that could become one.
Exactly. I'm telling you, if anyone's going to become a dynasty, if any team, right? I don't think the nine Super Bowls in 20 years I don't think it'll ever be repeated. I think what New England did is but if there's ever another team, it's going to be the Chiefs. So your division has essentially been it's just already tough as it is. And then Denver's up and coming. Say what you want about the Chargers defense. The Denver defense is also really good. So, their division is no joke. That's what I think I love about the NFL, especially this upcoming season. There are so many teams in that tier of, you know how we did a breakout flame out for players? There's a breakout or flame out for teams. Really, it's Can you make it? Can you get past it, or will you fall short? I think there's only a few teams that we can assume are going to be really good, and there are only a few teams we can assume are going to be really bad. Everyone else is just in that tier. I think this is this season I've never seen that many teams where I can say, wow, they could make the playoffs or they can go 5-11.
And the Chargers are the epitome of that.
Exactly. Perfect example here. Chargers and Texans, honestly.
So, the reason we did this episode was to kind of look, just kind of like the Texans one, to see if people were overlooking them or if there were reasons and if we would agree. And I think for the Texans, we said that people were kind of sleeping on them. And this one, I understand the knocks against the Chargers, and I might have to agree with them.
I think for one, Shrikar, if you don't mind, I'll kind of close out with this one question though. Do you think, because you guys know I love Derwin James, do you think he can lead this defense, right, and uplift this team enough to where it's a really good defensive team and the offense is just game managing, and then they sneak in like that? Do you think he has the potential to uplift this defense? Do you see any of that?
I'm not sure if he would take the complete leadership role, but I think the defense in general with Joey Bosa, we mentioned Melvin Ingram, Casey Hayward, Desmond King, who we forgot to mention earlier.
Yep.
Even Kenneth Murray as a rookie. I think the defense could mold together and help out. The Bills defense last year carried the team just a bit. Josh Allen played better, but the Bills defense did a lot for that team. The Steelers defense last year did a lot for that team with really nothing at quarterback and injured receivers. So I think that they can. It's just in the AFC, will it be enough with all those teams that we say in that tier?
Especially in their division, I wouldn't say so.
I think for one, I think the two keys for me for the Chargers to be quote unquote successful this year. One, you need to get good quarterback play. That's obviously key. I think the best case scenario for the Chargers is Herbert's a healthy scratch for the whole season. That'd mean Tyrod Taylor. He would have played so well, there was never a need to go to Herbert. And you give Herbert an opportunity to sit and learn. Second, you got to and then second, get back to the playoffs. That's true no matter who the quarterback is. And it's not I'm not going to say Anthony Lynn's job is in jeopardy, but I hear so many people say things like, oh, the Chargers are too talented to finish with just 5 wins. We all hear that. And that reputation is never going to go away unless you're playing in the postseason. So I think that's just another thing. But, to close us out, I could see this going one of two ways for the Chargers. Either you have a 49ers-like rebirth. You have a Bosa. But, there's also the very real possibility that, Phillip Rivers' impact wasn't underestimated. What if the quarterback position just becomes a mess? You can't just settle on one guy and, there may be a third way where they have a season like the Broncos did in 2019. You start off poorly, you finish close to 500 as, you put in Herbert. Look, I'm just not sure what to think. I don't know what the Chargers.
Putting my money on it, I think this is probably the easiest team I could see going 8-8. I think this is easy. If I were to give 8-8, the 8-8 thing to any team, I think it would be the Chargers. I think there's just I don't know why. It just seems like a team that's, yes, the roster is there, but divisional counterparts, AFC counterparts, I think will overwhelm them.
I think this team is extremely similar to the Bears in the NFC. I think there's a lot of the same problems. Obviously, quarterback controversy, like what's going to happen, and then a great defense. Can it carry? There's some offensive weapons and a pretty good offensive line. I think these teams are so similar that both these teams I can see either not winning their division, but like being a wild card team or even pushing a little bit for the division or just flaming out and not being very good.
I'll say one thing about that Bears comparison, though. One, I think Trubisky will bounce back. I think if given the job. And two, I think the Bears they've been more disciplined. I think that's probably a perfect comparison to the NFC side. But it's just like, yeah, the Chiefs are there, like in the Chargers division. Like I think the Bears have a chance at the division.
Yep.
I'd say the difference between them is I think I could see the Bears going 10-6, and I could see the Chargers going 8-8 just because that divisional. I think the Bears played better in their division. I think, and that's really what it comes down to for the Chargers at least. Can you go better than 500 in your division? If you can, maybe you go above 8-8. If not, I don't see much.
Mm-hmm. Well, let us know what you think in the comments. We're down to have a discussion. Let us know what you think about the Chargers situation going into 2020. We want to thank you guys for watching the video and supporting us. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and hit the bell if you want notifications for future episodes. Also, if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you rate us 5 stars. Also, follow the socials on Instagram. Like Anish alluded to, we have our top 5 fantasy sleepers there, which includes a couple of Chargers. And make sure you also check out our website. But other than that, thank you for watching. See you next time.